Mysteries surround us, captivate us, and allure us. From flying saucers to men in black, upright canine cryptids, we explore the strange, the unusual, and the unknown. Join us as we take you on a journey beyond the edge and into the realm of the arcane. Sean Forker, Lon Strickler, Butch Witkowski take you into the world of the unknown. Arcane Radio. Folks, you're listening to Arcane Radio. I'm Sean the Fort Chop Forker. It's been a while since we've last talked. And with me, I have two very special co-hosts, my mi amigos, our everyman over at Phantoms and Monsters, Mr. Lon Strickler, and our guy in the sky, Mr. Butch Witkowski. Guys, welcome back as we get this great episode started up.
It's good to be back. I mean, guy, it's been a while. You know,
About 2 months.
We've all been busy anyway, so.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, it's been a lot going on.
Well, as we were talking about off the air, I did go to the Creature Weekend this year, made an appearance there, had a good time supporting Small Town Monsters as they did the release of Invasion on Chestnut Ridge. Guys, did you get a chance to see that one yet?
Yeah, I saw it. It's good.
Yeah, I did not. I did not see it yet.
What do you think about it, Lon?
It was different. You know, it was different than what Seth usually does. It was a little more retro.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I mean, kind of got a little closer to the witnesses or people that knew what's been going on. And of course, with Stan and Eric and a few of the other people that Stan has known over the years and has worked with over the years, that was pretty interesting. I mean, some of that I didn't know. That one sighting in particular along the fence post, I knew about it, but I didn't really get a good perspective until I saw the movie.
Yeah, that was a very interesting session, that particular part of the movie. And I'm familiar with that too. I've been researching the Chestnut Ridge off and on for the last, 10, 12 years myself. There's something about that place when your boots are on the ground there. Butch, you've probably been to the Ridge once or twice.
Twice now. And yeah, that it is a very strange place. Let's put it that way.
It is very bizarre. Yeah, definitely has a feel there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting stories from there for years, talk to people. I used to go up there all the time when I was with the steelworkers. So I was up there, and I was up in Laurel Highlands and up on the Ridge and a few other places here and there. And you hear a few stories, a few odd stories. A lot of what I got were these phantom cat stories, big cat stories. I got a few of those over the years, and some ghost stories, some ghost sightings.
I was telling everybody, Lon, Butch, when I was up on the Ridge with Dave and Cindy Draguson, names that our listeners are probably familiar with. We were driving up one night in Dave's Jeep, and we stopped off along the road quick, and some folks asked us what we were doing out there, and we told them, well, we're out, looking for Bigfoot. This is what we do. And the folks are like, well, if you stick around with us long enough, you'll start hearing them here in about a half an hour. The folks up out on the Ridge, they're serious about what goes on up there. There's a certain, they're not afraid of it. Like, they know what's going on. And I'm sure some folks are afraid of it, but they're so used to it. And I daren't say it's a habituation situation, but these folks are just kind of lived in synchronicity with these strange things. It doesn't even faze them.
Yeah. Well, you know how Sam Sherry used to be. I mean, he was up and down in the Ridge all the time, and God, I don't know how old he was when he passed away, but I think he was working. I mean, the whole time up until the day he died, looking for Bigfoot, and he has some pretty interesting stories.
Well, I think Eric would tell you, Eric Altman.
Yeah, Eric knew him pretty well.
That perhaps some of Sam's stories over the years got embellished just to advance age.
Yeah.
Sam had some real interesting encounters. In fact, the one they showed in the film well, with the Mohawked Bigfoot.
Right.
That's one story that's always stuck with me, is very close encounter, like real as close as you can get. He had the spittle, hitting him in the face. That one was one of the stories I kind of grew up with, these really strange, the UFOs. And I never heard of the dragon until that movie, though. I have to tell you that.
But that's the strange thing about that area, Chestnut Ridge. You have everything from large birds to UFOs to strange things in the sky, strange lights on the ground, strange creatures, Bigfoot. I mean, it runs the whole gamut almost of everything paranormal.
I go back to that one story that Stan tells, and it's not in the movie, but just one of the stories, and you guys are probably familiar with this, where the Bigfoot comes out onto the road and grabs and claws into the back of these people's car as it's taking off. Mm-hmm. I always wondered if that was a dogman and not a Bigfoot.
I mean,
because if you look at Lorne Coleman's, I believe it's Lorne Coleman's sketch of it, it looks like a more of a dog type creature than a Bigfoot.
It very well could be. I mean, there have been sightings of these upright canines in that area as well. So, I've gotten several sightings and reports. Well, actually in Greene and Washington County, which is just west of Fayette County. But I've gotten there have been sightings up there.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send this to you guys during the Facebook Messenger, and perhaps I'll put it in the show notes for the actual radio program when we put it out on podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you guys determine if you think I'm far off on this, because I think when I look at these pictures, that looks more like a dog than a Bigfoot to me. And I just sent it to you guys in the messenger, and you can tell me what you think there.
Yeah, I agree.
And that was the sighting of the Bigfoot that kind of left the claw marks in the people's trunk. Looks very dogman to me, and I saved that. I'll put that up in the show notes.
I mean, it kind of looks like stereotypical Wolfman more so than a Bigfoot.
Yeah, no, it looks like you could put it overlaid with Lon Chaney, and you would have or Lon Chaney Jr., right?
yeah, Lon Chaney Jr.
Just thinking that when I looked at it. But a lot of Bigfoot reports where people state that it's more human-looking than it is ape-looking. And in a few of the reports, the bipedal reports especially, my guys are all saying the same thing. Are they mistaking the bipedal for Bigfoot or vice versa? And I'm thinking well, that's possible, I guess.
Well, I believe wholeheartedly, and you and I have talked about this, that, with all the Bigfoot sightings that have been made in the state of Pennsylvania in particular, I'm pretty sure some of them have been mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
I think we all agree on that one wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And I was talking to folks at Creature Weekend about the same thing, and it's a possibility. It's real hard to tell, right? Because we weren't there. We didn't take the reports. We didn't investigate. And really, until Linda Godfrey and the Gable film, people really weren't talking about Dogman that much at that point in time.
No.
Pre 2000, who was really talking about Dogman sightings?
Nobody.
That's where we're stuck with it. So anything going back before the year 2000 is really hard to tell. And guys, let's be honest, even after the year 2000, looking into things today, that could still be a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have a real big interest in the upright canines until we started getting all these reports in Pennsylvania. Of course, I had reports up in Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota for years. That has been well-known territory for the Dogman sightings, the upright canine sightings. But when we got that flap in PA starting 3 years ago, I mean, it's like, well, it's time to start looking into this. And of course, the Dueyo sightings, upright canine sightings have been prevalent in this area, in particular down in Maryland, in Frederick County. And there had been some historical sightings down there for years. And but as far as them possibly coming up the ridge or coming down the ridge from Pennsylvania into Maryland to West Virginia, well, I believe that may very well be going on.
Yeah, and also, one of the things that has struck me just recently is that, going over the reports, getting ready to get out there as I get over this cold. The witnesses now, there's been this strange influx into the reports that now come from a park ranger and a game commission officer.
Mm-hmm.
And I see no purpose in them, embellishing anything. But, when a game commission officer says that after being followed up a lane and then turning around and coming back and being followed down the lane and stops because he thinks he's being watched and turns around and sees this thing standing in the middle of the lane, that's kind of a little eerie. And then when they hightail their truck, they get to the truck and they look up on the hill along the tree line, and there it is standing there, staring at them. And his description is exactly like every description we've gotten. And that's the part that really slays me. Mm-hmm. We have no different definition in size, shape, looks, musculature, head, eyes. Everybody sees exactly the same thing, with the exception of the one in Tuscarora, where that two strange creatures were chasing the deer.
Yeah,
and
the quadrupeds.
And the guy was in the tree stand. That's the only outlier. But something's up there. Something's in that area. Something's in that lichen loop. And another thing that's kind of weird is we're not getting any calls or reports or any meaning outside of that lichen loop. And that's another reason why I think, the research area that we're zeroing in on is, I think we're pretty on there.
I guess my question is, why does everything in Pennsylvania happen in flaps?
You know what? That's I can't answer that, but that's true. Even in ufology,
that is true.
You can go for months, and you'll have the scattering of a few reports here, a few reports there, and then you'll have this flap of multi-witnessed sightings that'll take place over maybe 30, 60 days, and then they go away.
I think it boils down to everybody's either smoking the same tainted weed.
Yeah.
There's something in the water, or
just Pennsylvania.
People are legitimately seeing something in Pennsylvania, right?
Well, you get these Bigfoot flaps too.
73.
We haven't had a whole lot of. This year has been pretty quiet.
And I've reached out to several investigators who all work for various different organizations, and everybody said the same thing. It's been really quiet. Yeah. And in fact, I said that, and I've only received through the Keystone Bigfoot Project, and I'm not giving away any classified information because I'm the social media director, but probably 4 or 5 reports this year so far. Mm-hmm. We just got one the other day, but that's pretty quiet.
That is quiet. That is really quiet. But you know what? Nationwide, I haven't really seen an uptick or a steady stream of sightings coming in either.
Well, look, I have friends in BFRO, and my friends in the BFRO telling me the same thing. It's been pretty quiet. Yeah. Well, in Pennsylvania, I haven't really reached out to outside of Pennsylvania, but when I go through the BFRO public database, when they put sightings up there, you're seeing an awful lot in Ohio, more in New York. And I could be incorrect on this. Sometimes I feel like BFRO maybe post reports to skew a particular agenda when they're going to be running an expedition in a specific area. And I'm saying that in jest because I don't think that's really...
I won't embellish on that.
It's not as if they
have been accused of that before.
My mind goes in patterns and can't help but notice it. And and I'm just busting balls because I have a lot of friends in BFRO. And they're good people. I have nothing against any research organizations before I start getting slammed.
Well, I had a sighting reported to me right outside of Minerva, and I really had no idea where the Minerva monster sightings had been. So when I got that report out of Minerva, I let Seth know about it, and then Seth came back and told me. He said, "Well, it was reported along the highway right there by a junkyard, a huge junkyard." He said, "Well, the only junkyard I know is where the other sightings have been at." So it was right there where all the sightings had been at. So I don't know, but the way the witness described this thing was huge.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. We're all going to the Minerva thing, right?
Yes, sir.
And now you got monsters at the Minerva thing. You're dragging me into that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You're not escaping, Butch.
Oh, doesn't sound that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first sighting I've gotten from there personally. I mean, of course, people have been seeing stuff around there for years, but that's the first time I got a report, and I just thought it was pretty coincidental because the woods in the area where this thing came out and went across the road was where those people live at. That had been, I forget what their names were, but that's the people that had been reporting the sightings all these years that started all that. And that's exactly where this thing went into. So, I had no idea. And when Seth told me that, I kind of felt the chair. I didn't even realize it.
And we haven't really heard anything out of our friend Stan regarding new reports on Bigfoot or anything else.
No, Stan's gotten a few oddball reports, but really he hasn't gotten a whole lot either. Stan usually tells me if he gets something
in our area, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't heard a thing. This year's been quiet. There's no doubt about that. Other than, I really didn't need all the excitement anywhere else because all this stuff going on in Chicago, I didn't really do much else. But yeah, now we start getting Dogman and Bigfoot showing up in Chicago, then we're gonna have a problem.
I'm gonna go to Chicago. I'm just gonna. Yeah. We're gonna find some place. Maybe we'll live with the homeless population there and see if we can check something else out. Because
we'll be living under bridges in Chicago.
Bet you that's the place we're gonna find that shit too, man.
Where it would be.
We'll just park the truck on the bridge.
Yeah, we'll get one of those camper attachments, Butch.
Yeah, I can tow it.
So, like I said, we did have a Bigfoot report come in Westmoreland County a couple days ago. We put Tom Ference.
Westmoreland?
Yep, put Tom Ference on the scene there.
Yeah.
And Tom, I can't say good enough things about Tom because I tell you what, as soon as we get a report, that man's in action.
Yeah, he is.
And Tom doesn't piss around, and he does great work. Near Beaver Run Reservoir, he's a gentleman that is he's an everyday outdoorsman. Like, the guy considers himself to be a pretty outdoorsy guy. And what he reported to me, and I'll share this. I'm a 3%er, a survivalist. I spent the past 15 years at Beaver Run sleeping out all night. And what I heard the other night, I thought I was at the ape exhibit at the zoo. At least 3 of them were talking, communicating for a solid minute, and then it stopped and there was nothing but silence. So it freaked this guy out because he spent a lot of time there. And like I said, that's just the report, but Tom's working on it. I'm sure he'll get us some resolution to this at some point, and we'll keep you all posted. Go to KeystoneBigfoot.com to see the follow-up on that if I don't mention it on the program here on one of our podcasts in the next couple weeks. So Bigfoot returns to Westmoreland County, and Tom Ference is on the case. I feel more safe with Tom investigating it and checking it out. Good dude.
Tom's a good man.
He is. He knows his shit too. Like, I can't. You both. Yeah. You've worked with Tom on some of our Dogman stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's a good investigator.
Yeah, he was on our first expedition. He and his son.
He's a seasoned outdoorsman too. He's no joke. Like.
Yeah. No. He's.
Well, he had an encounter too. I mean, that story he relates with that encounter he had was pretty harrowing.
We'll have to get Tom on here so he can talk about his research. In fact, I'll write him down on here as a potential future guest, as long as we can nail him down, because I'm sure our listeners would like to hear from Tom.
Oh, yeah.
And folks, if you ever have any other suggestions for guests, go to arcaneradioshow@gmail.com and email us with your questions, comments, or concerns. So I guess we've put a lot of that stuff behind us. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what folks want to hear about. And that's Chicago. And Lon, some big things have been going on there.
Yeah, I mean, we for about 3 weeks, it had been really quiet. We had one report that we found off the topics, the Midlothian topics board, about a a huge winged humanoid out in Midlothian. And it was kind of interesting because Allison Jordan, who has been going to the locations and videotaping and talking about it, actually talked to one of the neighbors there, one of the people who lived where that sighting was. And it was funny when she was talking to it because he acted like he wasn't surprised. He says he's seen wolves go through that area. It's a long freeway, 270. I know, was that 270? I don't know, but it's the tri-state tollway. He says he's seen all kinds of crazy stuff around there. So when she mentioned something about a 10-foot winged humanoid, he didn't really seem to flinch too much. So I don't know what the deal is there. You know, Manuel was talking. He was thinking about actually putting cameras out there. And of course, you know, we had another sighting too, which was down the city, down in the Magnificent Mile area. That was just something flying between buildings. It must have been pretty good size. It was at night, and you know, it's lit up down there, so he got a decent look at it. But the report we got the other day kind of turned the tables a little bit on what's been going on. This was another sighting, or basically encounter, in Little Village again. Now this was on the western edges of Little Village in an area called, it's at the Piotrowski Park, which has a community center, and it's got a track and field there and all kinds of stuff. But it's a community park. And this couple got off of work about 10:30 in the evening and pulled into the parking lot, which is right off the road. We're sitting there, and they were talking and listening to music when he said they felt something hit the car from behind. So they thought maybe another car hit him. Back didn't say anything. He was going to step out to see what hit the car when suddenly something dropped right on the hood of the car. They said they looked and they both screamed at the same time. They saw a pair of bright orange eyes peering back at them through the windshield. He said the woman who was the witness who reported said that the thing that landed was solid black and was about the size of a man and had what looked like wings that were spread out wide. It looked right at us and then appeared to swipe the windshield with his hand. The fingers were long, much longer than a normal person, and ended what looked like claws. She said it looked like it was trying to get into the car at us. We were both screaming as it swiped the windshield 3 or 4 times. She said her boyfriend then grabbed the flashlight and shined it through the windshield at it. She said it shrieked out very loud and sounded like what screams of multiple people in a small room would sound like. It reverberated that much. Then it flexed its wings and took off straight up and gone out of sight. She said they heard it screech out at least twice, about a minute apart, as it probably circled the area before, after which they heard silence. She said they were both scared beyond belief, and she said she was hysterical and crying and afraid to get out, and they thought it might swoop down and attack them. Spent about 15 minutes in the car, but eventually calmed down. They took off and left. If this is the case, this is probably the most aggressive we've seen this thing. The one thing that's fascinated me about this one in particular is definitely sure we're dealing with more than one, if not 3 or more beings, because this had detached arms to it. From what I remember on the reports, we didn't have more than a few with detached arms. Normally, it's either got the arms that are connected to the wing, or it's just got wings coming out of the back with no arms.
Yeah, that's a little different, isn't it? And maybe it's just because some of the encounters have been so far away, they haven't been able to see those features.
Well, I'm kind of relying on the ones that were close enough, from what people saw. The one down with the couple when it hovered down in front of them, it seemed like the wings, the arms were attached to the wings on that one.
Kind of like a bat.
Yeah. And it had like, the claws on the top of the wing. The one sighting in Little Village all seemed to have the same thing. Either had the wings attached to the arms attached to the wings, or it didn't have any arms at all, or any, what they could see. I got another report from another individual. I don't know what to do with it yet. I'm kind of confused with some of the information they gave me, but they did a sketch too, and that thing didn't have any arms at all. It just had the wings, but it did have the red eyes. And not all these reports have got red eyes too, but it could be that it was looking away or something else.
Do you think this is the first of a new type of encounter we should start expecting?
I don't know. There was a report back in 2005 in Chicago of a man and woman where this thing had attacked the car as it was driving. He stopped the car, hoping it went away, but it came back at him at the windshield and tried to get into the windows of the car, the side windows. The woman was actually scratched. They took off, headed for home, and this damn thing followed them. And when she got out of the car, this thing grabbed her by the back. So she had some injuries. It was an interesting story. I mean, it's not part of the group that's going on now. It's possibility this may be something different, as opposed to what's people have been seeing lately, or it was just ticked off somehow.
That one sounded almost a large predatory bird.
Yeah, I mean, in that one in 2005, even though they said it looked like a human, it had the same type of characteristics of a large raptor of some type. I don't know what that was. I mean, it seemed the way they described it, it had the human size and everything else, the orange eyes just like this. I don't know. It was very aggressive. If this is what we're going to be dealing with, if this is what's going to be showing up, you heard about that airliner that hit something over Chicago, or as it was coming into Chicago and put that big dent in the nose cone. Somebody told me, he said that jet must have hit the Phantom and pissed it off, and now it's going after people. So I don't know. I don't know why people are trying to relate that airliner getting hit by the Phantom that's flying around, because I think it was up at 30,000 feet when it got hit.
Makes a good punchline,
Yeah, it looks good, but
that was a big dent, man.
That aircraft had a lot of damage for a bird.
Yeah, a regular bird wouldn't have done that.
No,
it was something with some size. I don't know. Somebody said something about Canadian geese go that high, but still.
What did they hit? 50 of them?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they were going they probably have gone about 300 knots, weren't they?
At least.
Yeah, and if it would hit something, it would have left something there, I would think.
Well, you'd think there'd be blood or something.
Some type of residue.
Some sort of, or smear marks with feathers or something.
So I don't know. But it definitely hit something.
That's for sure. I mean, that's a big dent.
So as far as, what we're dealing with in Chicago, we've had several sightings since we were on the last time.
I'll tell you what, guys, if a restaurant starts having specials on chicken wings, we know where they got their source materials from.
Some of the sightings or encounters in the Little Village have been pretty up and close and personal. I mean, the thing hadn't come after anybody, though it did go after that brother and sister who took off, and it went ahead of them and landed right in front of them, but didn't come after them. It was screeching a lot like this one was. So I don't know if the witnesses in this last report kind of embellished it a bit, figuring that this thing was coming after them and trying to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
Manuel said that he's going to go out there this weekend talk to the witness, and see if there's any damage on the car. You think something with claws like it was mentioned has kept striking at the windshield, would have left a scratch or two somewhere.
And you got to give kudos to Manuel and those guys and girls out there working those cases. I mean, Jesus, it'd be bad enough just working 4 or 5 cases, and they're up to what now, 57, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'd say cases in 2017 that we have confirmed. I'd say it'd be 53 of them, Jeez. 53 or 54. Yeah, they've been busy. I mean, it's. I mean, we're putting a lot of work into it. I mean, we've been on the horn together, on the thread together, talking and discussing this thing.
Yeah, and then you have Allison. Allison went out there and went to every site.
Yeah, she did.
Put it on YouTube.
And but it seems the media's starting to pick up on this now a little more again. We've been getting calls for a lot of interviews. I have talked to at least 5 production companies so far this past month. I don't know where any of this is going to lead at, but you think some of the local TV is showing some interest in maybe wanting to produce a thing here or there. We don't know yet.
You guys, I've been really spending a lot of time on Bigfoot again. Personally, trying to get back out into the field and just overgoing some of the famous cases. And as we came up and actually crossed the threshold of the 50th anniversary of the Patterson film, kind of going back into that and relooking at some of the details. And I can't believe 50 years, we still can't somebody can't prove it's a hoax. That's got to mean something, right?
Yeah, I mean, every time it seems like everybody and their brothers try to break that thing down and try to disprove it somehow. And I really don't see any proof that this thing was staged. I mean, I still don't see the proof that's been staged. You
are talking about 2 guys that don't have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
There was a lot of work that would go into pulling off a paper like that for these 2 gentlemen's expertise. I just don't see how. I don't see how Roger Patterson or Bob Gimlin had the resources to do something like that.
They didn't.
Firmly believe what they got on film that day is the real deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we had talked about the Freeman film too a while back, and I believe that was legitimate. I really do.
I spoke to Mike Freeman, the son of Paul Freeman. Got to know a little bit more about Paul through conversations with Mike. And, I feel like Paul Freeman never got a fair shake in the Bigfoot field. And I think his video is just as important, if not on the same level as the Patterson film.
Yeah. Well, you and I both said that. I've said that for years, that I thought the Freeman film was definitely legitimate.
In fact,
evidence. And, I mean, there was nothing there that even hinted at deception to me.
With the Freeman film, you have his reaction also caught on tape.
Sure.
You don't have that in the Patterson film.
No, you don't have any of that.
When you have something like that added extra emotion, I think that lends more credibility to it.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, it does add to it, and it doesn't seem like it's acting of any type, or that he was forcing himself to act like he was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
He it was just, he knew it was out there. He just
listen. I saw Paul Freeman act. Okay, it was an ice cream commercial. The guy was no actor. He was no actor, and I don't mean that to slight him at all. He wasn't an actor. If he couldn't act for an ice cream commercial, I'm sure he didn't have the theatrical skills to pull off what he was reenacting in the forest the day he shot that videotape.
Right.
And I think the important thing to realize about Freeman is he had that video camera with him a lot. It's not like he had a camera out there for that specific day. Like, he had that camera with him. He was following up on some tracks that he had seen at the reservoir and decided to follow some of those tracks, if I remember correctly. And that's what led him to that fateful encounter that day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he kept the camera with him. It wasn't, if I remember my conversation with Mike correctly, and if folks go back and listen to the few episodes of the Nocturnal Journal that are out there, there's a great series of episodes with Cliff Barrickman and then again Mike Freeman that really go through the whole story of Paul Freeman. I think it's important that we talk about Paul Freeman in the context of today's Bigfoot, because he was an important part of the puzzle and is an important part of that puzzle with that footage. That footage today still remains probably my favorite piece of Bigfoot evidence.
And you're right. He did not get the recognition he should have. Now, I've taken screenshots of that video over the years and done a lot of different things with it, and I can't disprove it. I really can't. I mean, just the way this thing moved through those trees, the way it did, what it looked like out in the few frames where it was out in the open. I just don't think anybody could have acted that thing like that. You know, I've looked at the raw videos several hundreds of times, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, I do believe it's genuine. And the more I look at it, you know, the more convinced I am that it's the real deal.
I saw that 1994 film before I even saw the Patterson Gimlin film.
Oh, yeah?
Well, I wasn't into that Bigfoot, you know.
Right.
And I come across Paul Freeman's 1994 film, and I thought, wow, holy crap.
Yeah.
And then I found the other one, the Gimlin film, and Patterson Gimlin film. I went like, wow. And then, like you said, I don't think the guy got an inch of credibility from what I think is a really good shot. I mean, that's a good film.
Well, you know, he had taken a lot of cast, too, and in fact, he had that hand cast. That hand cast was pretty wild. You know, the one where it had stuck its hand into the mud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he got it, you know, he went ahead and took a cast of it. That was fascinating.
You really can't screw that up in terms of say that was made by something else besides a human being. You can't say, oh, that was made by a bear, or that was made by a raccoon, or that was made by an elk. You know, that clearly is made with something that had 4 fingers and a thumb and a pretty massive size.
Well, you look at it, it was probably 3 times the size of a male human's hand, if not larger. I mean, it had it looked like a primate hand, and a large primate hand.
Did it have dermals?
You know,
I think it did.
I think it did. I think I read that it did. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Of course, it's not real close, but I think I did read that there were ridges on it.
I have the knuckle print. I don't have the hand print.
Right.
I'd love to get a copy of the hand print if anybody ever made it.
Yeah. But, you know, his foot cast, too, you know, the ones he got throughout the 80s, you know, he had those up there in those Blue Mountains, you know, near Wall. Well, I guess he got them all around the same area. But, you know, those foot casts were very, very interesting as well. You know, I don't know. I just believe some of the evidence that he had presented. I don't think it was faked evidence. I think he got actual evidence. That's my opinion. I mean, I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, there's just, like I said, Paul Freeman, I don't think ever got a fair shake, and It was a shame because I really feel he was a researcher's researcher.
Yes, he was.
And history's always going to look back differently on people, and I think we'll see that change. Well,
you know, especially some of the crap people put up on YouTube. I mean,
Can we just not agree that YouTube has become the cesspool for research?
Oh yeah, well it has. I mean, especially some of the stuff I've seen lately has just really gotten bad. I don't know. I'll be quite honest with you. I don't think I've looked over YouTube for a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot video for almost 2 years now. I really haven't.
Well, and the reason being is, let's be honest, it's hard to get excited about Bigfoot videos at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, you see where Todd Standing is suing British Columbia now.
Yeah, I saw that. What a goon.
Yeah.
Can't these guys just disappear? Like,
well, and I don't buy into any of what he has been putting out there. The Ewok pictures and all the other stuff he's been putting out for all these years. The Sylvanic area, and then he got the survival guy mixed up in that, and Les Stroud. I don't know. I just really have never had much confidence in Todd Standing. I just really haven't, and he really hasn't shown anything to me where I can where he's convinced me of anything other than that I believe it's something that was produced. And the fact that he's got this lawsuit against the British Columbian government, I guess he's looking for protection. Is that what he's looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines.
I think this is something to try to enhance his claims, to be honest with you.
I got on my computer this morning. I got up a little earlier than I wanted to, so I decided to lie in bed and listen to some. I actually started searching for Bigfoot stuff.
Uh-huh.
As I told you, I've been spending more time on the subject again. And I came across this book, kind of multimedia program called 100 Nights of Bigfoot. Have you guys heard of it at all?
I've heard about it.
With a family that had experienced some unusual situation around their property with Bigfoot creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, I listened to some interviews. I don't know what to make of it. Grant, because like I told you, I only came across it this morning. I've heard one interview so far and read a part of the story, and I think I'd have to read the books before I made up my mind, but what an ordeal.
I'll have to look into it.
100nightsofbigfoot.com, I believe, is the website, guys. You can check it out, and listeners, you can check it out as well.
Where did this occur at?
I wish I could tell you. Let me take a look. Got to make sure you put in the website right, or my wife's going to be questioning my browser history.
Nice.
By the way, be careful when you Google Paul Freeman handprint.
No.
You'll get a whole bunch of images you didn't expect.
No. Oh, I can imagine.
100bigfootnights.com. I'm sorry, 100 Bigfoot Nights.
Okay.
These folks, I guess, were on coast to coast, and they were interviewed by Shannon LeGros, our good friend Shannon, Wes, and Will Jevning over on Sasquatch Chronicles.
Okay.
Not too long. Well, I guess a couple years ago at this point. They've had quite a few. Name's Christina Parker is the lady who wrote the books and had the experience, but I don't know exactly where this took place in terms of the location. And of course, I knew you would ask me that question, and I'd forget.
Yeah, I'm not. I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with the story or the claims. Quite honest with you, the last couple of years, I've kind of gotten away from the Bigfoot stuff in a way. If I get a sighting or something, somebody reports something to them, I'm going to go look into it. I've been kind of discouraged with all the false claims over the years. It's kind of really, I don't know, it's kind of turned me away from it in a way.
Well, I always say I'll go back to the one that brought me to the dance, right? And Bigfoot's where my passion lies. I like the field of exploration. I like the field of study. And I'm not new to it. I've been doing it a very long time. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the best and I've seen the worst. I just have hope that one day we'll all get our shit together and we can get on this in the way that's going to get some tangible evidence. And there's some really good researchers out there too. Find something out really soon. And we have to get much better evidence than what we currently have if we're going to start getting people really engaged into this field of study. More scientific. Because right now you've got Dr. Bindernagel, Dr. Meldrum, Dr. Esteban Sarmiento. But aside from a handful of academics, it's laughed at by the scientific community. We're still chasing a fairy tale in their eye. And the researchers don't help it any. Shows like Killing Bigfoot don't help it any. Shows like Finding Bigfoot. It's not being critical, again, of Cliff or Bobo. It's just shows like that are edited down to 45 minutes of sound bites and overhyped, over-dramatized situations. They don't help with the reality of the research. And folks, let me tell you, from somebody who spent time in the field, it's boring.
It really is.
There are many times you sit out there at hours of the night, and Lon, you know I like it when it's cold. So I've spent time along creeks at -5 degrees with the wind blowing and it's sleeting and just trying to get a glimpse or trying to get a sound of something in areas that have had a lot of activity or following up on witnesses. It's boring. And in the years I've done this, I've had one encounter that's blown my mind and another encounter that's kind of left me scratching my head. What if?
Yeah.
But you're talking about 1.5 times out of the hundreds or thousands of times I've been out there. So I like to set the bar at reality level for people that are coming into this. Don't expect to get the grand prize the first time you're out there. It's boring. Don't let TV fool you. I went off on a rant there. Sorry.
But you can take my word for it. It's out there because I've seen it.
Well, I've seen something, and I tell you what, man, from how I've talked about it over the years, how limited I've talked about it over the years, it changed me.
Oh, I know it has. I mean, that was a weird night. It was very interesting because, Eric called me and he said, I don't know what Sean saw out there, but he's freaked out. And you wouldn't talk about it for 2 weeks or more. I mean, I know it made an impression on you.
And the bitch of it is, I freaked out a lot of other people too.
Well, you freaked me out. I didn't know what the hell you saw out there.
To this day, I still don't know. I know it freaked me out, man. And one day we'll have a nice dedicated time set aside for it. But it's still, I retold the story to Dwayne Pintoff a couple weekends ago, guys, and the goosebumps. Yeah. Each time I talk, even now when I'm talking about it, my skin starts pimpling a little bit. It was not an easy ordeal. I think I have a little PTSD from it, to be honest.
I think you ran across something a little more supernatural than just flesh and blood, to be quite honest with you. That's just a sense of what I get. Has anybody been up in that area lately, doing any research?
Not really. And I was up there a year ago. I've gone back.
I got to go up there.
I've been back to that area twice since the encounter. And I've never been up there with a group of people less than 10. So I was up there with the Seaches and the Ruperts and some other assorted, pardon my sniffling there, folks. I'm just getting over a cold. I've been up there with a select group of researchers and friends, but it's not a place I like to go. And I used to go up there bunches of times before I had my experience. It's just not a place I like to. I took my son out with us one time. My son and my cousin went out with us on one of the PBS annual trips. Made my son nervous because I told him the story of what happened to me out there.
I bet you did.
And I couldn't shake him loose. It's important that people share these kind of stories. And I know, as somebody who has experienced something, that it can be life-changing. And I don't take it when somebody reports something like this. It's easy to be a skeptic if you haven't been affected by it.
Well, that's what I tell people who say I saw something. I mean, I didn't see what I saw. I mean, you got to be there. I mean, that's basically it. If unless you're there, you have no idea what it feels like and how it leaves you. I mean, mine was 35 years ago. I mean, and it still affects me.
Well, I know when I was up in Sean's area and he related his story to us that night, we talked.
Yeah, I bet.
Talked about that one all the way home.
Yeah, I mean, I that's why I just believe that Sean ran across something more supernatural than flesh and blood, because just by the way he related to Eric and I after a couple of weeks when he talked about it, and I still feel like that. But there's been some strange stuff that's happened up there. I mean, it's just one of those areas where a lot of weird stuff happens.
And you got to ask yourself why those areas, why the Chestnut Ridge, why the Allegheny National Forest, what's in those areas that make it so prone to these type of situations. And it's not just there. I mean, the Cook's Forest, like I have long-term, I have a couple there and I haven't talked to them in a couple of years. I got to reach back out to them. They moved from New York City. They've lived out here now for quite some time. He's a retired school teacher. She's a retired nurse. He's gone blind. His wife was telling him these experiences and she had a sighting and he really didn't believe her until he started feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Your other senses become aware as you start losing some of your other senses. And like he believes, he became a diehard believer. And you're talking about old growth forest. Some of these trees lawn out there are so big that I can't put my arms around them.
Mm-hmm.
This is area untouched.
Sure, lack of pop.
Yeah, very much so, Butch. Like these people live out there year round. And it's an area where a lot of people don't live out there year round.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like in the Lichen Loop. A lot of the places that we've gotten reports from are just, we've been there and it's just, they're so far out in the sticks, and I mean, they live in the middle of nowhere, and just general lack of population. Some of the places we were at, they don't even have police or fire protection. They got to rely on the next big town to come and save them.
Or the Stadies.
Yeah, and it's. I know the one place we were headed to. And my GPS, I looking at the GPS, we were on the right road, and then all of a sudden the GPS popped up. You're off grid, off road.
That's got to make you feel
another
good.
route. Like, wow.
Some places in this state, it'll feel like you just fell off the edge of the earth.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know how it is up in. Yeah, when you get in some of those old, like you say, old growth areas in Pennsylvania, and especially some of these valleys, my God, it is. It's like you went off the edge of the earth.
Well,
and that's why it doesn't surprise me there's so many hot areas and so many odd sightings in this state. I mean, we're just fortunate enough to be in an area where there's just a lot of places for things to either hide or be able to live without a whole lot of people messing with them.
That's why I laugh when people have that opinion of Pennsylvania and New York, where they think New York City is New York as the entire state. Pennsylvania is either Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. There's so much wilderness in those areas. It's remarkable. And some of these areas of Pennsylvania, the northern tier where I do my research, Potter County, McKean County, Cameron, Clearfield, Tioga, the list goes on of those counties, Clinton County, that northern central part of the state. There's a lot of wilderness in between those towns, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that live in those towns are old world people. You have to really beat out of them when they start talking about something. You have to pull the information out of them. They don't want to talk to people about this stuff. They don't want people to think they're crazy.
Down here where we're at, and Butch tell you, you wouldn't think York County, Adams County, well, of course, Adams County with Gettysburg and everything, but York, Adams, and Lancaster, this lower part of the Susquehanna Valley. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. Well, Timothy Renner can tell you that. I mean, there's just a lot of nutty things people see down here. And
Yeah.
but this whole
Crazy.
state, I mean, this state's got some really strange places. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I mean, hell, Stan can tell you that. I mean, and anybody else who's been working this state for as long as he has, and myself and everybody else, there's just a lot of weird things.
Yeah,
Unexplained
it really
things.
is. And Seth, I have to give Seth all the credit in the world. Seth Breedlove, Small Town Monsters, doing these stories about these areas that don't get a lot of attention from documentaries. Yeah. He's really bringing these stories to life. And in fact, shameless plug, Small Town Monsters Case Files Episode 1, Cold, talks about Indrid Cold and the weird happenings there in West Virginia. It's about 8 minutes long, well worth the view, guys. Check it out, smalltownmonsters.com. Go to YouTube. It's really well. I've shared it. I'll share it on the Arcane Radio page.
Small Town Monsters he's
Case
gonna
Files.
do one of those case files about Chicago too.
Oh, I'm sure he is. He told me
he's talking to some witnesses.
He's got enough B-roll from things to do. He said just from the Chestnut Ridge alone, he has enough B-roll where he could do a whole series of case files on that area. And we'll do a whole episode here dedicated to the Chestnut Ridge coming up. Because I think there's a lot of cool things we could talk about from a historical standpoint till today. We get Stan Gordon back on. We could spend the whole 2 years talking about that. Just stand up and let him stand up and watch him go.
Yeah.
But man, really, truly, Small Town Monsters is really hitting it out of the park. Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, their Kickstarter for On the Trail of Champ, and the Beast of Bray Road, or the Bray Road Beast, whatever they're going to call that particular film. I don't remember off the top of my head. That'll be coming out in January, so stay tuned for that. All right, folks, I'm Sean Forker. He's Lon Strickler. That's Butch Witkowski. You've been listening to Arcane Radio, podcast form coming at you. Follow us on Facebook at Arcane Radio Show. I believe that's what it is, right? Arcane Radio Show. Go to Twitter at Radio Arcane, or just go to our website, arcaneradio.com, for more information. Folks, you can find out more about me at thefortshop.net. Lon, where can they find you?
Fansofmonsters.com.
Butch?
euforcop.com.
There you have it, folks. I'm Sean. That's Lon. He's Butch. Catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody.